What you're about to witness is one of Judge Frank Caprio's most unforgettable moments, a story that will stay in your heart long after it ends. A 10-year-old girl named Isabella Lopez walks into the courtroom, not to face punishment, but to defend her parents from unpaid traffic fines they cannot afford. What happens next moves the entire courtroom to tears, and reveals the true meaning of courage, love, and justice. Judge Caprio has seen thousands of cases but never one like this. When Isabella begins to speak, the air in the courtroom changes. Every word she says comes from a place no adult could ever reach. Pure honesty and fear wrapped in the innocence of a child trying to protect her family. But when Judge Caprio discovers why Isabella is standing there instead of her parents, everything stops. The courtroom grows silent. The judge's next decision will not only define this case but remind the world that compassion still exists, even in places built for judgment. Before we continue, take a moment to subscribe to Real Judge Stories and share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me, where are you watching this from? Are you at home, at work, or maybe on the road? Because what you're about to see goes beyond any courtroom drama. It's about the power of love when a child steps forward for the people she calls home. And trust me, this story will make you believe in humanity again. It was a calm Tuesday morning inside the Providence Municipal Court, sunlight filtering through the high windows and glinting off rows of polished wooden benches. The low hum of whispers, shuffling papers, and muted footsteps filled the air as the day's hearings began. Judge Frank Caprio, known for his calm voice and steady compassion, adjusted his glasses while scanning the docket. His morning was supposed to be routine: parking fines, late registrations, and a few minor traffic offenses. But one entry caught his eye and made him pause. Case number 417, Lopez family, multiple unpaid fines totaling $410. Beneath the listing, a small note stood out in the clerk's neat handwriting: limited English proficiency, may require interpreter. Judge Caprio looked up from the page, curiosity flickering behind his gentle expression. He had seen many families come through this courtroom, people burdened by circumstance, fear, and misunderstanding, but something about this note felt different. The doors opened and the courtroom quieted. From the back, a young girl stepped forward, her hands gripping a folder nearly as big as her chest. She was dressed neatly in her school uniform: white blouse, blue skirt, and tightly tied ponytail. Behind her walked her parents, Elena and Rafael Lopez, both hesitant and unsure, their eyes downcast. But it was the little girl, Isabella, who carried herself with the quiet resolve of someone far older than 10. Her shoes tapped lightly on the courtroom floor as she approached the bench, heart pounding but steps steady. In that moment, even before she spoke, Judge Caprio sensed this case would not be like the others. It would touch every soul inside that room. As Isabella reached the defendant's table, the bailiff's voice softened as if even he felt the gravity of this small child stepping into an adult world. The courtroom, usually restless with murmurs and impatience, grew still. Every eye followed the little girl clutching that folder of papers as though it held her family's entire future. Judge Frank Caprio leaned forward slightly, curiosity mixed with quiet compassion. "Good morning," he said in his warm, reassuring tone. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "My name is Isabella Lopez, Your Honor," she replied, her voice steady but innocent. "I'm here to speak for my parents, Elena and Rafael Lopez." Judge Caprio set his pen down, his expression softening immediately. "And how old are you, Isabella?" "I'm 10 years old, sir. I'll be 11 next month." The response drew a faint smile across the judge's face, and a quiet gasp from a few people sitting behind her. A 10-year-old, standing alone, speaking for her parents? It was something no one in that courtroom had ever seen before. He asked gently, "Why are you the one speaking for them today?" Isabella looked down at her hands, then back up, her eyes shining with both fear and resolve. "My mama and papa work hard, but English is difficult for them. They are scared they might say something wrong and make things worse. I understand better because I study every day. So I came to help them." Her words were simple, but they carried weight, the kind of honesty that no lawyer could rehearse. Judge Caprio nodded slowly, realizing that this wasn't just another traffic case. It was a moment where a child's heart had replaced fear with love, and that love was now standing before him, asking for mercy. Judge Caprio's gaze softened as he studied the young girl standing before him. "Isabella," he said gently, "these papers say your family owes several traffic fines. Do you understand what that means?" "Yes, Your Honor," Isabella replied, her small hands gripping the folder tightly. "My papa got tickets because our car's light broke and the registration expired. He works a lot and sometimes it's hard to fix everything." She paused, took a deep breath and continued, My mama and papa were afraid to come today. They don't speak English well. They said maybe they would say something wrong and it could hurt us. A hush fell over the courtroom. Even those who had come for their own cases leaned forward, listening. The child's honesty cut through the air like a bell. Judge Caprio leaned forward, voice calm but deeply moved. So you decided to come instead? Isabella nodded. Yes, sir. I go to school every day and I know how to explain things better. My teacher says when we love our family we must help them. So I came for them. The judge looked toward Elena and Isabella Lopez, who stood several steps behind their daughter. Fear mixed with pride on their faces. They had trusted their little girl with something far greater than any homework assignment. Their dignity. He turned back to Isabella. That's a very brave thing to do. You understand how serious this is, don't you? Her eyes glistened but she didn't flinch. I do, Your Honor. We just want to do the right thing. We didn't mean to break rules, we just didn't understand all of them. And in that instant, everyone in the courtroom realized they weren't witnessing a legal case. They were witnessing courage in its purest form. For a moment, Judge Caprio said nothing. The courtroom was so silent that the ticking of the wall clock became the only sound. He leaned back in his chair, studying the little girl who stood before him with her shoulders squared and her eyes filled with both fear and light. Then, in a soft, measured voice, he asked, Isabella, can you tell me something? Why are your parents so afraid to speak in this courtroom? Isabella looked over her shoulder at her parents. Her father lowered his head. Her mother clasped her hands. The child's lips trembled before she spoke. Your Honor, she began, my papa and mama came to America so we could be safe. But they think if they say something wrong, maybe we will have to leave. The words landed like a heavy echo in the room. Even the court clerk stopped writing. Judge Caprio's eyes softened with compassion. He slowly rose from the bench and stepped down to meet Isabella at her level. His tone changed from formal authority to quiet kindness. Isabella, he said gently, look at me. She lifted her eyes. In my courtroom, he said, nobody has to be afraid. Tell your parents that Judge Caprio says they are welcome here. They came to make a better life for you, and that's something every good parent does. Isabella turned, speaking softly in Spanish to her parents. Her mother's eyes filled with tears. Her father placed his hand over his heart. The courtroom seemed to breathe again. Judge Caprio smiled faintly. You've done something extraordinary today, Isabella. You've shown more courage than many adults I've seen in this court. You stood up for love, and that's the best kind of justice there is. The stillness in the courtroom slowly gave way to quiet whispers of awe. People who had come that morning expecting a routine hearing now found themselves wiping their eyes. Judge Frank Caprio returned to his bench, but his expression had changed completely. Gone was the formal look of authority. What remained was something far deeper, the warmth of a man whose heart had just been touched by innocence. He cleared his throat gently. Isabella, he said, I've heard many explanations in this courtroom. But yours is different. It's not an excuse, it's a reminder. A reminder that sometimes justice isn't about punishment, it's about understanding. He looked over at Elena and Isabella Lopez. Mr. and Mrs. Lopez, please step forward. The couple hesitated, then moved beside their daughter, heads bowed respectfully. Judge Caprio continued, I know life isn't easy when you're working hard and trying to learn a new language. Mistakes happen. But what you've raised here, he gestured to Isabella, is proof that you're doing something right. He paused, then smiled softly. I'm dismissing all the fines today. Gasps spread through the courtroom. Isabella blinked in disbelief, then turned to her parents, translating the words through tears. Her mother covered her mouth, her father whispered, Gracias, thank you, Your Honor. Judge Caprio wasn't finished. He picked up his phone and dialed a number right there at the bench. Mr. Reynolds, he said to someone on the other end, this is Judge Caprio. I'd like you to meet a young girl named Isabella Lopez. She's going to need your help with her family's immigration paperwork. The courtroom erupted in applause. The Lopez family stood together, tears and smiles blending as strangers clapped for them. In that small courtroom, humanity had triumphed over fear. 1 year passed, and the morning light once again spilled through the tall windows of the Providence Municipal Court. But this time the air felt different, brighter, lighter, almost expectant. Judge Frank Caprio sat at his bench reviewing the day's docket when he noticed a familiar name. A smile slowly crossed his face. He looked up as the bailiff called the case. Isabella Lopez. The doors opened, and there she was again, no longer the timid girl clutching papers, but a confident 11-year-old walking proudly between her parents. Elena and Raphael stood taller now, their fear replaced by quiet pride. Isabella wore her school uniform neatly, her posture straight, her eyes sparkling with joy. "Good morning, Isabella," Judge Caprio said warmly. "It's wonderful to see you again." "Good morning, Your Honor," she replied with a grin. "You told me to come back and show you how we are doing. So I did." She handed him a folder. Inside were report cards, certificates, and photographs. "I got straight A's again," she said proudly. "And my papa fixed cars now at a workshop. Mama cleans at a school, and we moved into a better apartment." Judge Caprio's eyes glistened as he looked through the papers. "You've done more than keep your promise, Isabella. You've made us all proud." Elena spoke carefully in English, her voice shaking but proud. "Judge Caprio, thank you. You made us believe again." The judge smiled and held up a new certificate. "Isabella, the Providence Bar Association has created something special. The Isabella Lopez Future Advocate Scholarship. It's for young students who show bravery and compassion, just like you." Isabella's mouth fell open in surprise. "They named it after me?" "They did," Judge Caprio said gently. "Because you showed the world what true courage looks like." The courtroom burst into applause, but this time the sound was filled with pure joy. Even the clerks and officers who had seen countless hearings stood clapping, smiling through tears. Isabella turned to her parents, and for the first time, they no longer looked afraid. They stood tall, proud, and grateful, a family that had once walked into this room trembling, now walking out transformed. Judge Caprio looked around at the crowd and then back at the young girl who had changed everyone's day. "You know," he said softly, "some people think justice only lives in laws and books. But I've learned that real justice lives in moments like this, when compassion meets courage." He paused, his voice lowering with emotion. "Isabella, your courage reminded us all that doing what's right isn't about power or position, it's about love. You showed the world that even a 10-year-old can teach adults how to be brave." As the family prepared to leave, Isabella turned back to the judge and said, "Thank you, Your Honor. You made me believe good people still exist." Judge Caprio smiled, his eyes glistening. "Good people like you make it true." That moment became more than a courtroom memory. Local news covered the story, and letters poured in from across the country, people thanking Isabella for reminding them that kindness still wins. In a world often divided by fear, one child's voice had reminded everyone that empathy is stronger than fear, and compassion is louder than judgment. Because sometimes the bravest hearts don't wear robes or carry badges. Sometimes, they stand just 3 feet tall and hold a folder close to their chest, believing that love can change the world. And that, friends, is why Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom is more than a place of law, it's a place of humanity. Isabella Lopez didn't just defend her parents, she defended hope itself. Her story reminds us that courage isn't about age or status. It's about doing what's right even when your voice shakes. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to subscribe to Real Judge Stories, because here we share the moments that prove kindness still matters. Every week, we bring you true stories from real courtrooms where compassion changes lives. Now it's your turn. Drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Have you ever witnessed an act of courage like Isabella's? How did it make you feel? Your words inspire others to believe in goodness again. Because when we share stories like this, we remind the world that justice isn't just about verdicts, it's about hearts. So, hit that subscribe button, join our growing community, and keep watching Real Judge Stories, where every case proves one truth: humanity is still alive and kindness still wins.